Welcome to One on One. I'm Greg Bassey, your host from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. It's another big day here at PAC 14. We're going to talk about things you wouldn't think that you could talk a whole show about, but we are. Parsons Cemetery in Salisbury. It's a beautiful thing. We have Rick Fahey here to talk about it. Welcome, Rick.
Glad to be here.
Now, what's your role with the cemetery?
I am the chairman of the committee, the volunteer committee that advises the cemetery, or essentially runs the cemetery.
And people think it's a cemetery, so you don't want to talk about it, but it's one of the more fascinating places in Salisbury. It's like a park. It's on Johnson Lake there, Johnson Pond. And you all, in recent years, have built a beautiful little, like an amphitheater thing down there, like a whatever it's called. Tell me about that.
Well, yeah, we've worked really hard. The committee that helps to run the cemetery are all volunteers and from the Salisbury area, and all have an interest one way or another in seeing the cemetery succeed. But we've worked really hard over the last several years to try to turn it into just what you described it as a park, as a place that people can come to for any number of things. You know, not just burials. Obviously, they come there to visit loved ones that they have at the cemetery, but we have lots of people that just use it as a walking trail.
I go down there and eat my lunch all the time.
And eat their lunch, and as you said, several years ago, we created a spot on Johnson's Lake. It's actually a memorial trail where we have burial sites for cremated remains, but we made it such that it ends up in a really nice. You could describe it as an amphitheater. It's a circular brick platform.
Right, like a stage almost.
And we have had several concerts and presentations on that, and it's a really beautiful spot. We purposely designed it with this long walkway so that it was handicap accessible, and it's a great asset to our cemetery.
And like there's Sister Mary Elizabeth is buried right near there, and I go see her all the time because she was so inspiring in my life.
Right near that, very near that for the sisters, Mary and Joseph, little sisters. She has a site 100 feet from the top of the steps.
Beautiful, looking out over the pond, the lake.
And it's a great spot. I encourage anybody. I often tell people that have not been to the cemetery or have sort of drive by and see the front wall, and I said drive to the back,
right,
and see what you see there. And we have additional plans for that, possibly coming up next year for making more use of that.
And when you walk from front to back, it's Salisbury's history is sort of laid out right there, and it's fascinating to me. I guess the older graves are in the front when you first come in. And it sort of progresses. And I was just doing some research this past week because I wrote a big article on Fred P. Atkins. People born in the late 1800s who died in the 1960s, that area. And it's just fascinating to me to see sort of the people who made Salisbury. They're all there.
We do. It does progress essentially historically from the front to the back. In fact, our clever naming of the front of it is Old Part.
Okay, and I didn't know that. Okay,
and it has many graves of notables, however you want to refer to them, people who have been instrumental in Salisbury's history. And
you have a couple governors in there.
We have some governors. We have state senators. We have generals. We have any number of people that have contributed to the history of Salisbury and beyond. In fact, we are one of our things that we're going to do next year in September is we're going to unveil walking tours of that very thing.
Great idea.
Self-guided walking tours. We're going to have 3 different walking tours, and we're doing this purposely in conjunction with the 250th anniversary of St. Peter's Episcopal Church that
Right.
actually owns the cemetery.
Right.
And the third Friday event next September will be dedicated to St. Peter's Church. And so we're going to capitalize that, and on that Saturday, unveil 3 walking tours, self-guided walking tours of the cemetery. One will be, just as you described, the history of the area of Salisbury and the area as told by the people who are buried there, and the monuments that were dedicated to them. The second one will be, and it's equally interesting, is a botanical tour of that. We have had a botanist look at our trees, look at our
Very unique set of trees here, yeah.
Plant life, and there are some that are like the only one in Maryland, and so there's a lot of interesting plant life, and so we're going to have we're working with this botanist who is going to identify the particularly interesting trees or various plant life, and so somebody who's interested in that can take a walking tour of the cemetery with that specifically. And then the third one will be the monuments themselves are interesting because they're different styles. Styles change over the years. There's symbolism on the monuments that mean certain things, and so we're going to create a self-guided walking tour for that. And much of this will also be available on our website that people can go in and look at.
Now, over the summer, you had a ceremony to honor the anniversary of the gates. Yeah. Beautiful gates on the front of that cemetery.
The gates, the wall that is what most people see of Parsons Cemetery as they drive by on North Division Street was given to Parsons Cemetery by Allison Parsons. Right. Allison and Ella Ward Parsons. Who were descendants of the Parsons who had originally donated the land for the use of the cemetery. But in 1967, he designed and provided the funds for building that wall that you see in the front of the cemetery. And we got a grant from a community foundation in the Norfolk area that he established. He was a beer distributor in the Norfolk area, and he established a foundation there. And we submitted a request to them, and we did receive a grant from them to renovate that wall in the front of the cemetery. He was also a lover of camellias. He and his wife were lovers of camellias. He developed a strain of camellia called the Ella Ward camellia. And so part of the grant was to fix the wall. Another part was to plant camellias. Yeah. And you will see 100 and some camellias along the south property line of the cemetery, and in 2 other areas in the cemeteries. And some of these are the Ella Ward design. We had the unique opportunity because we got this work done through this grant, and we realized that it was being finished. When we did some research, we found out that the original dedication ceremony was exactly 50 years before, and we found out that it was on a Sunday. And not only that, but this year, that Sunday fell on the very same date as it did in 1967. So we had an amazing opportunity to have the rededication ceremony on the exact day and date 50 years from the original one. And so we purposely invited all of the same groups that were there at the 1967 ceremony, and we had a great turnout.
Yeah, those gates are beautiful.
They are.
They're amazing. And in high school, I lived up in Forest Lake, Emerson Avenue, and went by there, 3 times a day. And I remember the gates were always closed at a certain time, and I never saw anyone close the gates. So I was convinced that somehow they closed themselves on their own, or some of the occupants there somehow closed the gates.
Well, unfortunately, we have to have somebody close them and open them
Yeah.
our day-to-day management is done by Holloway Funeral Home.
Okay.
We contract to them to do the day-to-day management of the cemetery, and we have Rusty Barnes as a in-house manager of the cemetery, and one of his tasks is to go there every morning,
Every day,
and
yeah.
every night, and
Like
open and close
Christmas,
those days.
Thanksgiving, they're open and closed.
Yep,
I mean,
yep.
someone's there every day.
It's a difficult thing to get somebody there all the time, but he does it very, very dutifully. And we have looked into seeing if we can get some sort of automatic gate closers, but we're limited in actually having electrical power
Right.
there to accomplish that. So maybe that's on one of our tasks down the road to make that a little bit easier. But it is certainly one of the difficult parts of managing the cemetery.
Right. Now, I also heard there's plots for sale in there.
Oh, we have lots of, yeah.
See, and I never knew that until recently.
Well, there was a sense for a long time that we were full, and by
That's what I
no
thought.
means are we
Yeah.
full. We have several thousand plots still available in that area where we were discussing earlier that we created the walkway along that 10, 15 years ago was still a wooded
Right.
area and was an attraction to maybe less desirable things than
Oh, in
than
high
you
school, we
might
used to sneak back there all the time.
than you might
Yeah.
like in a
Yeah.
cemetery. So some years ago we developed that portion of the property, which in the same clever way that we called the front of it the old part, we call that the new part.
Right.
And so we made a very nice section of that. So we have lots of area available, and still areas available throughout the cemetery.
One of my favorite websites is findagrave.com. I love looking at that, and there's some great entries for Parsons Cemetery. I'm sure there's other ways to look, but how do you keep track of everyone who's in there?
We are in a very long project we have a software package, cemetery information mapping system, and it is a database of who is in the cemetery. But the other interesting thing about it is that we can project a map of the cemetery on the large screen TV that we have in the office that can show you if you're looking for somebody. Say, well, all right, we can zoom in on that spot, and we can click on a particular grave and bring up the information. The reason I refer to it as a multi-year project is the way graves were kept, or burials were kept track of from beginning of the cemetery was in a logbook. And so we have a whole bunch of old logbooks
Wow.
and old pieces of maps that various managers, it has been managed in with varying degrees of professionalism
Right.
over the years. Certainly right now with Holloway operating it is heads and shoulders over what it has been in other times. But we have a whole lot of old logbooks, and in order to enter that information into the database, we have to go out and probe the site,
Right.
to make sure that somebody is
Not
actually
already
where they're supposed to be. That we find a vault underneath there. We have to read what's on the headstone and then transfer that information into the database. And it is a very tedious process. My wife now has been involved in, she's volunteered her time for the last 10 years, I guess, in entering this data. She works hard on it during the summer when she's not teaching, and and then sometimes on weekends. But we've got a lot of information entered, but a lot to go. And we are now in the process of upgrading the system. One, to include the walkway that we discussed earlier in the front, but we will be adding geographic coordinates to the site, so that somebody can actually go in and find out what are the coordinates of this particular grave I'm looking for, and then use an app on their phone that tells them where they, latitude and longitude of where they are, to help them find that particular grave. So that will be an improvement that in the next couple of months we will have in our database. So it's pretty neat. It's a pretty neat thing.
Well, when I was there looking at the Atkins family, their graves, one of the things I noticed is the stones are kind of dirty, and I've always wondered about cleaning the stones, how that works, but you have to be careful based on whether it's the granite or the sandstone or the different kinds of headstones. Would you guys encourage that, or how does that?
Yes and no.
Right. You wouldn't want someone to screw it up. But
that has been a discussion for some time among our committee, because we would like to clean up a lot of the stones, particularly when we get into these walking tours,
right,
of those that we're presenting. Have them cleaned up, but you do have to be careful. We don't want to just let anybody go in there and clean them, because there is a process to do that, and there's argument over what is the right process. There are some that power wash, which, by the way, Arlington Cemetery power washes theirs.
Right.
But
they're marble.
But there are chemicals that you can and chemicals that you can't use. And one of our other projects that we're hoping to get into as we get donations to do it is develop a fund just for that purpose, a monument maintenance fund that will allow us to have somebody that knows the proper technique to come in and do just what you're describing, is clean those stones and try to just make it a more interesting experience when you do the walkthrough of it.
This year in December, you guys are going to be part of the Wreaths Across America project. Tell me about that. I'm going to have Jeff Merritt come in and talk more about all that, but tell me about what's going to happen at Parsons.
We are very excited about that. We have always supported veterans. Veterans Day, Memorial Day celebrations have been held at Parsons Cemetery for a number of years. They've moved to other places more recently, but in the past they were near the flagpole that's near our office at Parsons. In our Facebook page and in our website, we have highlighted veterans. We've put out biographies of them when they're on the dates of their death on our Facebook page. So we've done a number of things, and a number of organizations certainly still come in. They put flags on that, and we had some of the members of our committee had volunteered for Wreaths Across America at Arlington Cemetery. They had traveled to Arlington Cemetery and put wreaths on the graves at Arlington Cemetery. We said, well, why can't we do that here? There aren't very many on the shore that do it. There are 3 on the entire peninsula that do it, and we will now be the 4th one. And things are, Jeff will tell you that things are really shaping up right now for it's going to be a great event. We're getting a lot of support from organizations like the American Legion and the VFW, the Elks, and so he can bring you up to date on some of that. But we're really looking forward to that event.
Well, thank you for your service in this and realizing this is an asset and protecting it. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you having us. We appreciate the opportunity to tell people more about what Parsons Cemetery is, because so few people don't even realize it's there.
This is Rick Fahey. Thanks for being here today.
All right, thank you.
Joining us now in the studio is Jeff Merritt. Jeff does so much for our community with Operation We Care. Now he's getting into this Wreaths thing at Parsons Cemetery. Tell me about it, Jeff.
Well, Rick and the crew over at Parsons reached out to us several months ago about becoming a location for Wreaths Across America, and we thought it was a great idea, and we put the ball in motion and worked with the national organization, and we got signed on as a location, and off we went. So the planning began. The National Day is Saturday, December 16th. That's at all the cemeteries across the country, and there's going to be ceremonies. Of course, Arlington is the largest one that everybody knows about, but there are ceremonies at cemeteries all across the country on the same day. So
now,
it's a large effort.
Now Parsons will be one of them. That's really,
Yes.
really cool.
It is. It's a very historical cemetery. I didn't realize how historical it was until we started meeting over there and planning, and I was finding out all this wonderful information about who was there and how it came about, and the work that they're doing down there by Johnson's Lake, and it's really fantastic. We're proud to be involved in it.
Where are the wreaths going to come from? The same places the ones for Arlington come
Yes,
from? Up
yes,
north?
they all come out of Maine.
Right.
I don't know when they start making them, but I guess they start early because they've got a lot. Arlington alone has almost 500,000 wreaths.
Right.
So it's a pretty big project, and there's a lot of logistics, transportation involved. So those guys, they do a fantastic job.
So the wreaths are going to go on the veterans' graves at
Yes.
Parsons.
Yes.
And about how many do you think it'll be?
We've set 500 at our goal. We know there's way more than 500 buried in that cemetery, but we'd like to get 500 wreaths the first year. And we've identified and marked the graves so that when it comes time for placement, we can walk through in some sort of an organized fashion and pick the veterans' graves out very easily and place the wreath and then move on to the next one.
Right. I should have known because Jim Ayrton, the former mayor, sent me a cryptic note. He wanted to know how many mayors were buried in the cemetery, if I knew, and whether they were veterans or not. And I knew of like 3 mayors that were in there, but I had no idea if they were veterans. So that's what he was working on, I guess. He wanted to make sure the mayors got wreaths that were veterans.
Yes, we have the ability to place wreaths on specific graves. Family members, if they want us to accommodate that, we can. We'd like to know ahead of time. Right now we've got 186 wreaths that have been purchased so far out of the 500 that we want. The wreath deadline is November 27th, so we've got a little bit of time, but we'd like to get as many wreaths purchased as we can and get as close to the goal as we can.
So that's my next question. What can we do to help you?
Well, you can order wreaths. That can be done individually or by an organization. If they want to purchase multiple wreaths, it's very easy. Just go on wreathsacrossamerica.org, the national website, and there's a field where you can type in the cemetery. You type in Parsons, and it will bring our screen up, and then you just click donate, and that'll prompt you on how many wreaths you want to order. They're $15 a piece, and you can just pay with a credit card, send them a check, however, but we'd like to get as many wreaths as we can. If you just go to the general website and donate, the wreaths won't come to Parsons. They'll go in the general wreath inventory to be spread throughout the country. So it's pretty important when you go to click on the specific cemetery that you want your wreaths to go to.
And one of our local connections is Purdue Farms, uses their trucks to haul the wreaths down from Maine.
Yes. They've got a whole convoy. They've been involved, I believe I was told 11 years.
Yeah, last year was the 10th anniversary, yes. Yeah.
Yep, so it's nice to have that local connection, and a lot of the drivers of those trucks are veterans, so it's pretty close to their heart, and it's pretty awesome to be involved with Purdue and Parsons and just have all this local connection. It's very nice.
Now, you are the veterans guy. You operate Operation We Care, which is where you guys send boxes of gifts and stuff to servicemen and women overseas.
Yes.
What's your connection? Why are you so aware of veterans and seeking to help them?
Well, we started packing care packages 10 years ago because we realized there wasn't really an organized effort on the shore to do that. There were little groups doing this and that. So we decided to put something together, and in 10 years it's grown beyond our wildest dreams, and then we've sort of spread our footprint out into doing other things, working with the VA, getting involved with Wreaths Across America, things like that, just to help bring the veterans' issues, up to the surface, and a little bit of awareness. So, but the Wreaths Across America here in Salisbury, we think it's really huge. It really is.
Do you need any help? Any volunteers?
Yes. The standard rule of thumb is never turn down a volunteer. We're going to need volunteers to help place the wreaths. The ceremony is actually going to start at the entrance of the cemetery on Division Street and then proceed to the back where we're actually going to place the wreaths. So we might need people helping other people that might not be so mobile make that journey.
Right.
So it would be helpful to have as many volunteers as we can.
And that's all on the 16th?
Yes, December 16th. And the information will be on the Parsons Facebook page. And we're looking forward to our first year and hoping we can build from there. And I think it's great. We're really excited. You know, the first year of anything is pretty exciting. Yeah,
the photos whenever you see the wreaths on the graves are just compelling. They really are. You've got life and death, and the wreaths are such a reminder of life, and the contrast is really interesting. That someone cares enough to put that down is how it strikes me.
Right. Well, the Wreaths Across America mission is honor, remember, teach. So we want to honor our veterans. We want to remember what they've done to serve our country, and to teach people, the children, that this is something that they should get involved in and just not forget.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Repeat the contact information for me so we can put it on the screen and everyone knows where to call or go online.
The Wreaths Across America national website is www.wreathsacrossamerica.org, and I mean it's a very easy to navigate website. You can go on there. There's all kinds of things. If you want to do fundraising, there's a link for that. If you want to volunteer, there's a link for that. But the important thing is when you want to donate, you want to click where it says pick a specific cemetery. You click on that, you type Parsons in there, and then our little web page will pop up.
Okay, cool.
And that way you can go from there.
Cool. And Operation We Care, you have a pack coming up. Do you need help with that?
We do. I think we're pretty full on volunteers. We're always looking for items to fill the boxes. So our website's operationwecare.org. There's all kinds of information there. We're looking at packing 800 boxes later on this month. So
what's the date for that?
The 19th.
Okay.
Yep. It'll be an exciting time.
Right, and you're doing it in Mardella this year?
Yes.
So you've always done it in Sharptown, so that'll be exciting.
Yeah, Mardella's got a little bit more room this time, so right. we're going to need it. But we've got Wreaths Across America, Operation We Care, and Toys for Tots all at once. So
right. Tell me about Toys for Tots, because I was worried. My cousin Ed Herthway used to run it.
Yes.
And before he passed last year, he was worried about the future of it.
Well,
are we okay?
We are okay. We had one of our committee members fail to show up at a planning meeting to decide who the next coordinator was going to be. So in his absence, he became the new coordinator. So the project will continue. So lesson learned there is always show up at your meetings.
I think Ed was hinting that maybe I should do something about it.
Well, we did need a coordinator. And just briefly, the scope of that thing is we rounded up 13,000 toys last year for local children that go to Worcester, Wycomico, and Somerset County.
Incredible.
So that's 6,500 kids, almost 7,000 kids. So, that's a pretty big turnout for a local effort, and we're pretty proud of that. It will continue. The boxes are being put out now. So if you see a Toys for Tots donation box, please put something in it.
That's awesome. Jeff, thank you for your service to the community. We really, really appreciate it.
Proud to do it. It's a great community.
He's Jeff Merritt from Operation We Care, adding some wreaths to Parsons this year and Toys for Tots. He's got a big holiday season planned. I'm Greg Bassett from the Salisbury Independent Newspaper. Another edition of 101 right here on Pack 14.
First Shore Federal is proud to support PAC 14 and one-on-one. We'd encourage every business to support PAC 14 and pick a program and support it, and let's make a difference.